I'm Aaron Larson, Executive Editor of Power Magazine, and today I'm joined by our senior editors Sonal Patel and Daryl Proctor, and we're going to be previewing the May issue of Power Magazine. And on the cover of this month, we're focused on solar power and some of the innovations that are taking place in the solar sector. Daryl, you worked on that article. Can you talk a little bit about some of the takeaways from it?
Sure. Thanks, Aaron. Innovation is a big part of what's driving continued growth in solar power. Obviously, there are some challenges upcoming with not only solar power, but the entire renewable energy landscape, particularly in the United States. But I was at the Intersolar Conference in San Diego back at the end of February and saw a lot of different companies exhibiting many different technologies which are designed to improve the optimization and efficiency of solar power installations. One of the big questions has been what's going to happen with the Inflation Reduction Act. A lot of money was already allocated to different projects. Is that going to be saved? Are those projects going to move forward? And if they do, then what are those projects going to look like? In particular, what in terms of residential solar and also utility scale solar, what are the different tracking systems, the racking systems? Saw a lot of innovation in systems to racking systems depending on terrain to enable solar farms to be built on uneven ground. And then just the innovations with new transmitters, new programmable logic controllers, solar tracking systems, and then even systems to improve the design and structure of the actual solar panels to withstand extreme weather, in particular hailstorms, which are becoming more prevalent as extreme weather becomes more prevalent. And then another interesting thing was a robot from a company called RoboForce, which actually can automate a lot of the installation of solar power and also can work on different types of terrain.
Great. Thanks, Daryl. And also tied to the cover focus on solar power, we've got another article called How Super Crystalline Nanomaterial Applied to Solar Power Cables and Connectors Can Improve System Efficiency. So that's a more technical article about a specific product, and I hope people will check that out as well. In the features section, we have a focus on hydrogen, and Sonal, you wrote an article about hydrogen and basically what's happening in that as far as the power sector is concerned. Is it hype or is it more realistic projections that you came up with?
Well, it's kind of a complex picture. So it turns out that globally more than 4 million metric tons of per year of low carbon hydrogen capacity has cleared final investment decision. But most of these projects are still stuck in early planning. So in the US, we saw this massive rush of momentum after the Inflation Reduction Act and the $3 a kilogram 45V tax credit. But the final rules and delays in guidance have caused some major uncertainty, and some developers are now saying their projects are unbankable. So while electrolyzer technology is maturing and projects like ACES Delta and Utah, which we're watching very closely, are moving forward, the real bottlenecks are really structural. It's all about cost, offtake certainty, and grid integration. And power sector applications like seasonal storage, backup for data centers, and curtailment capture are really seem to be gaining some traction. But without demand side certainty, even these markets will face some headwinds. So the bottom line is that no, hydrogen is not a tech problem. It's a market design problem. And what happens next will depend on policy clarity, infrastructure investment, and whether we can prove out that value at scale.
All right. Thanks, Sonal. Also in the May issue, we've got a Marnie Surface Blow article. For those that may not be familiar with Marnie, she's a fictional character that is an engineering expert and solves problems quite uniquely in many cases. And in this case, she's working on a scrubber corrosion case. So I hope people will check that out. We've also got an O&M story that I wrote, which is focused on optimizing plant performance. And a couple of the things I mentioned in that article was a Sulzer service that they are offering, which is on pump optimization program. And they do an audit and make recommendations on how you can operate your pumps more efficiently and basically optimize your operations. Very innovative program that they've got there. I also mentioned a control valve that is kind of unique. It's a ball valve that has, instead of the standard, O-sized opening going through it, it's got different categories of V-shaped openings, which allow it to control flow much more accurately and precisely. There's a 90-degree slot, and there's a 60-degree, 30-degree, and then just a horizontal slot that is used in this type of control valve. And it's made by Apollo. It's pretty unique, and I thought that was an interesting feature that I wanted to highlight. Also in this issue, we've got a cybersecurity article focused on operational technology cybersecurity. There's also a smart grid article that talks about transforming grid operations to improve intelligence and allow delivery on the promise of a smart grid. There's also some risk management articles that are focused on mitigating financial risks due to extreme weather, and particularly on how the solar industry is getting smart about storm defense with different products that particularly mitigate against hail damage and things like that. So I hope people will find those stories useful and interesting as well. In our Global Monitor section, we've got a contribution that Daryl wrote about fusion energy in Germany. Can you talk a little bit about that, Daryl?
Sure, Aaron. It's interesting because Germany's government had decommissioned its last 3 nuclear power plants back in 2023. The new government has come in and they want to revisit nuclear power. And one way to do that, they're looking at fusion. There's a project now underway, what they like to refer to as a first of a kind project with in the Hessian state, utilizing a collaboration with leaders from business and science communities. One of the companies involved is Focused Energy, and then you've got some of the universities, also Siemens Energy, RWE Power is involved in it as well. And this is partly because the new government has come in and said they may lower the country's renewable energy and climate initiatives, but as part of that, they still want Germany to become carbon neutral by 2025. So one way to do that would be to bring back nuclear power in some form or fashion. And I think, that some of their thinking is probably, if we could get fusion to work, and of course, fusion's being worked on around the world, that would really, not only be a breakthrough, but would also really help their energy system as they move into the future. So we'll see how that program continues to move forward. The Hessian government's committed 20 million euros, or about $22 million US, to fusion research and development, and they're hoping to get more funding from the German government. So, Focused Energy looks at this and says we may have a potential customer for our technology in the German government, and then RWE could operate a fusion power plant. They've sort of on the drawing board, a 1 gigawatt fusion power plant has been discussed. And again, we'll continue to follow this project and see where it leads.
Fascinating to think that we could see a fusion plant coming online sooner rather than later. So hopefully they'll make good progress on that. Also in Global Monitor, we've got an article that Sonal wrote about Alberta, Canada, and some of the demand that they're seeing and how they're bracing for it. Can you speak to that a little bit, Sonal?
Sure. The reason that Alberta is kind of a very interesting case study is that it's Canada's only fully deregulated power market. So one source was comparing it to our ERCOT market here in Texas. And it's navigating a real surge of power demand, just like the other markets. Once the source told me 11 gigawatts of data center load is now in Alberta's planning landscape. And so that exceeds the province's current peak load, and it's forcing policymakers and developers to rethink the infrastructure and supply picture. And so to manage the growth, Alberta is going to focus on self-supply through co-location and behind-the-meter generation. And then this is kind of the same model for the oil sands industry that has used it for decades. And at the same time, the generation mix is evolving rapidly, just like other places. Alberta has added 2 gigawatts of firm gas capacity through repowering projects. Emerging technologies are in motion too. It's exploring SMRs, geothermal, and it hosts 27 carbon capture projects. So an interesting, case study for decarbonization. The reliability stakes are getting to be precarious. Alberta narrowly avoided rotating outages in January of 2024 and ordered its first load shed since 2013 in April last year. And then as demand grows, those challenges are only going to intensify.
It's challenging for many, many places in the world, but obviously very much for them. In my Speaking of Power column for the May issue, I wrote about how Pacific Gas and Electric, PG&E, is supporting EV growth. Many people may not realize that when a person buys an EV and they want to install a charger, a level 2 charger is kind of the fast way to charge your car. So in order to add a level 2 charger to your home, it's a very large load for the system. And in California, for example, a lot of the panels that are installed in houses, particularly any built before 1990, are only 100 amp or even in some cases 60 amp panels. And for these level 2 chargers, you almost need a 200 amp panel because the charger itself requires a 60 amp breaker. So what PG&E has done is they've partnered with Itron to install a system that basically monitors the house usage and can use the power when it's available to charge the EV and then curtail it when other parts of the home, such as the air conditioning, are running. And it basically allows the homeowner to have a level 2 charger without having to do expensive upgrades. Also mentioned in that article is a product by Span, which is a company that basically ties into the meter and adds on a separate outlet off to the side that can be used and incorporated into the system to monitor upstream and downstream power usage and basically regulate what's used by the charger in these situations as well, which prevents other expensive upgrades. So I thought that was very interesting and useful information that maybe others can emulate as well. Also, in our commentary section, we've got an artificial intelligence's thirst for power demands greater focus on cybersecurity. That's an article that was contributed by a couple of individuals from Auburn University's McCrary Institute for Cyber and Critical Infrastructure Security. So they're experts in the field and understand what's needed to basically set the power industry up for success. So I hope people will check that out. And lastly, Sonal, I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit about your big picture and some of the innovative projects that were mentioned in there?
Sure. So the International Energy Agency released a report called The State of Energy Innovation, and it tracks more than 580 breakthrough energy projects globally. And it's interesting because it focuses on those with direct implications for the power sector. As Daryl mentioned in his piece, fusion is making some progress. There have been projects that have sustained fusion for 20 minutes, more than 20 minutes. Then there are a bunch of projects that are extracting lithium from geothermal brine. There's compressed CO2 storage coming, and scalable SMRs that have had market traction, backed by tech giants. And these projects are moving rapidly toward commercialization, which is great news for the power industry. But at the same time, I think what we're seeing is this translation of technical progress into deployable, resilient power solutions. So we have that story online at powermag.com. I hope you guys will check it out.
All right. Well, thank you both for your input and your insight, and I hope that readers found this interesting, and will be sure to look up our May issue of Power Magazine, which is available on May 1st and will be available online at that time as well. So thanks for watching.